Hi. Lucia, I see you. Kim, Christina. Hi.
Hi.
How is everybody? I'm doing something very important right now. I promise. I'm reading something that I was going to share with you guys. Okay. We'll give it a couple more seconds. Hey, Brooke, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, thanks for commenting. I like it. I've kind of felt like maybe there were some crickets out there, but at the end of the day, Brooke Mars comes through. And how fun about the Hub's new schedule. Are you loving that? Like he's home?
I love it. He wasn't getting home until like 6:30 every night. And so he was only getting like 2 hours with us. And now he's home at 4:30, basically. It's so amazing.
Yay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's things like that little things like that make a difference, especially in corporations, I think too. Like, you know, just having a little bit more flexibility and being able to be more present, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, and he misses all the traffic coming home. It's wonderful.
It's great. And then you can pass off that cutie patootie and have a few seconds to yourself.
Yes.
Calls,
do something
right?
by myself. Cook dinner quietly.
Exactly. Have a glass of wine, listen to some music, you know. Hi, Kim. I see you walking.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. How are you?
I'm good. I love to see your face. That makes me so happy.
I'm just impressed that I figured out how to turn it on this time.
Girl, you and I have been through a journey together, and I will say I am like virtual high five to you because I know it's a challenge and I like it. So it's good. It's good. Okay, so let me see. Okay, we're recording, so I'm going to figure out how to get this recording thing to like, it sends it as an MP3 player like file. So all of us, I mean, and I'm not tech challenged, but I don't know how to like share that. So it may be something that email you guys out, you know, if you can't make it 1 week or something like that. So, okay, so we'll jump in and get started. I see Lucia, Kim, Jenny, Christina, Brooke. Perfect. So Jenny Hansen, there you are. Can you hear me? Hi. So did that help when I sent you that picture?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, so Jenny and I talked last week briefly, and so she was like, I'm having this struggle with tracking, right? Like, these are silly things. Like, who thought we need to have a Zoom call about it? But it's important. Like, when you're reaching out to people, how do you keep up with it? Like, who are you reaching out to? So I told her that, you know, I'll show it to you, actually. That would be more helpful since we're on camera.
I'll go get mine because I filled it out. Hold on.
Okay. So it's the monthly, this one's actually January, but it's like the monthly tracker, like this month's like a heart one or something. But literally I print them off like every 6 weeks and I just fill it in. And so what I do, I don't know if you can see it, but like next to each person's name that I reach out to, I write like virtual show, you know, or I leave it blank if it's just a regular hostess, but I'll write a V if it's virtual, or if they tell me another month to reach back out to them, I write that month in there. Or if there's a stylist conversation, I write like the letter, you know, that kind of thing. And like, it's so basic and I'm such a tech person and paperless, but it's so helpful. And I like keep it in my purse. Like I keep it in my little notebook thing. So it's just helpful to have like a one page instead of trying to like keep track of everything and stuff like that. So anyway, so we were talking about that. So it's silly things like that I feel like are helpful, right? Like how do you keep track? How do you see the growth that you're doing? And like literally this was one afternoon. So I don't get to do the 2242 because my life doesn't allow me to do 2242. I do it on the fly. And so I'll go big and then have my follow-up, right? And then the next week, maybe I'll do a little bit one afternoon and stuff like that. So that's the thing too, I feel like, is that like the 2242 is smart, right? 2 reach outs a day, it's bite-sized pizzas or pieces. But sometimes like that's not possible. There's days that like you have to double down and do more. Or maybe you're just one of those people that like Friday afternoons, it's like that's the day you wash your hair and that's the day you reach out to everybody for an hour, right? So it's not size fits all, and I think that's what's important. So Jenny, show us yours.
Can you see it okay?
Can you all see Jenny's? Go Be Lovely, the Valentine's one. So See how helpful that is? It just breaks it down. And it doesn't have to be like each week. Like, she could have probably had that going on, or it could be one time that you sit down and make it happen, but it's just that running list, and that list is always going to evolve. And so that's why, like, every month I literally will reprint it out and refresh it, right? And maybe that's the time I reach back out to that person, or I follow up, or I add someone new to it. So it's just a good way to track, right? And it's not just booking, in persons, it's virtuals, it's sponsoring, it's everything. So food for thought, one thing I'll start off with. So the other thing, what we were going to talk about tonight was group hello. And I don't know about you guys, but you can raise your hand if you're like, I don't really want to talk about the group hello, because I really don't want to talk about the group hello. Does anybody? No. A lot of head shaking going on. Okay. So I actually am going to, and I don't think Sarah's on, but Sarah Chavan sent out something to her team a couple weeks ago, and I actually have been thinking about this, and I'm like, it's actually somewhat of going back to the basics, right? Like, all of us that are staring at each other's faces right now, we want to be a star, right? We want to, and me too, I want to re-promote myself to star. Or if you are a star, you want to hit star again, or you want to be a star, right? Lucia.
Yeah.
What's up, sis?
I'm getting my nails done.
Oh, you are? Do you want to mute out for 2 secs, and then when you're ready to interchange, then perfect. Okay. I was like, somebody's talking to somebody about nail color or some situation. So I was like, that's the West Coast problem, right? Here, if I was in the nail salon, you guys would be worried where I'm at 9:00 at night. But so one thing that she sent out, and I'm going to share this, I'm going to actually share her incentive email she sent out to her team, because sometimes it's black and white. Seeing it makes it easier, but I'm going to kind of walk you through it. Okay. So the whole plan is that we have big goals, but how do we get to those big goals, right? And the way we do it is, it's not tomorrow. It's not this month. It may not be March. It may not be April. It may not be the spring. But at the end of the day, if we do the right actions and we're consistent with it, then it will come. And so I think sometimes we overcomplicate it. And I don't know, Kristen, if she's on, let me see. No, funny. She was the one that was like, here's what I want to talk about, but she probably either technical difficulties or kid difficulties. Right. But at the end of the day, like, she was talking about, like, I just can't find time, or I don't find the right time to reach out. And I want to do this, and I want to do that. I want to listen to this. I know Kim has this problem all the time. Kim can shake her head of, like, there's so much noise, right? So how do we simplify it? And what are those things that we need to do that are, that consistent recipe for success? And so there's this thing called keep it simple, right? The KISS. Has anybody ever heard of this? Where it's keep it short and simple, or keep it sweet and simple, or, there's all these different adages of it. But one of the best things I will say is that Jessica Heron will tell anybody till you're blue in the face. And I remember saying to her, like, when Brent had lost his job, when I first started with Stella and Dot, it's like, I really want to build this business, but, like, I didn't want to sponsor. I didn't know what I was doing. What do I do? And she goes, you go book trunk shows. And the reason you go book trunk shows is that trunk shows are, you need sales, you get a trunk show. You need another trunk show, you get it from a trunk show. You want to meet a potential stylist, you go to a trunk show, right? The trunk show is the cure for everything. And so keeping it really, really simple and saying, like, okay, well, I'm not getting yeses, or I don't have enough trunk shows, or I want more trunk shows. What do I do with it? And this is a great thing for you to kind of self-reflect on, as well as emulate to your team, right? To when you're coaching somebody, because, all of you on this Zoom have at least a stylist on your team. So it's duplicatability, right? It's saying, like, okay, it's always the empathy of, like, I'm struggling too. Or Kim and I have had those conversations where I'm like, I hear you, like, I'm right there with you, and together we'll get through it. But what I also think is that the best thing when it comes to a trunk show is people are like, I'm not booking, or no one's saying yes, is the 3 questions. It's like, you're not asking enough people, right? So Jenny, I'll give you props. You're asking enough people. Of that list, there's all those people you've asked, and you're asking enough people. So it's saying, like, if you want to have 4 trunk shows, and that, the mathematical equation is 10 to no, right? 9 no's to 1 yes, then you need to be asking 40 people to get 4 trunk shows, right? So in a perfect world, in a beautiful time when weather's there, and, it's not snowing, or it's not super hot, and everyone's in this happy place, then that would work. But sometimes it's going to be a little bit extra work, and sometimes it's not, right? So when you're doing that, you're not asking enough people, right? I'm not booking trunk shows, so you're not asking enough. You're not asking at all, maybe you just, some people just think it's going to fall into their lap, right? You're thinking, oh, well, if I go to this trunk show, then I'm going to automatically book a trunk show. No, you're not asking. You have to ask. And I actually jumped on, Callie Smith was doing a team Zoom for her new stylist. So I jumped on for a few minutes, and they were like, one of the questions was like, how do I reach out to people who I haven't talked to in a while? Which is a great question, right? Like we use Facebook as a network, or we use our, it's silly as like taking your phone out and going through your contacts. It's crazy the people that you will find in there. Amen, right? Like 100%. Or going to your Christmas card list, or people you receive Christmas cards from, graduation announcements, birth announcements, wedding invites, whatever, is when you pull that list, it's crazy because I think we automatically just assume like, oh, well, I haven't asked her to have a trunk show. And how do I have the right to ask her to have a trunk show if I haven't talked to her in 2 years, right? Like, but she's cute, she's stylish, she lives around the corner, or she lives in a different area, and maybe I could set up a virtual and meet some of her friends, is the fact that like you have to earn the right. Like we all have to earn the right to ask. And so I think the biggest thing is like, how do you plant that seed and make that deposit so then you can ask, right? So maybe it's somebody you haven't talked to in a while. You reach out to them on Facebook, you text them, whatever it is, and you say like, hey, like, love Facebook and love keeping up with your kids. So cute. Or you text them and be like, girl, I was just thinking about you. Gosh, it's been forever. Hope you're well. Catch me up on what's happening in life. And you literally are just starting a conversation, right? And then the conversation continues. And then maybe next week, now you've planted that seed, you've warmed them up. It goes back to the basics, right? Keeping it simple. You've warmed them up, and now you have the right to ask, right? It's that simple. And they say no, then they say no. And I think the other thing too is like when you take the pressure off yourself, and you say things like, I feel so bad that all these years I've been doing Stella and Diet. I say this all the time. I have never, ever asked you if you want to have a girls' night. Like, silly me. Or, I've always admired like your whatever, your style or your work ethic or how, social you are. I can't believe I've never asked you if you want to be a stylist. Like I think when you kind of put the blame back on yourself, it makes it less like pushy and the Rolex person in Times Square, right? Like you're not the crazy jewelry lady or, running someone's feet up with, different, supplements and wraps and, skincare, life-changing, anti-aging stuff, right? You're literally saying like, hey, I'm so sorry, I've never asked you this. What do you think? And literally when you start with the like, no pressure, like it, I just want to, what, would you like to do this? Or I'd like to come do this for you, are kind of great ways to kind of focus that on. And then it's the same thing at a trunk show, right? Like you're at that trunk show. How do you earn the right to ask that person? Yeah, we all have the person, hopefully, that has the big wish list that we're like, oh, tune in. She's the one, right? But how do you have that right to ask somebody either at the show or in a follow-up to be your next hostess or to join your team? It's because you stepped away from that jewelry and that you are investing time in getting to know them. How do you know the hostess? Oh, do you work? Do you stay at home? Do you have kids? Have you ever been to a Stella Dot show? What's your story? Oh, where'd you go to college? Whatever it is you're making that vestation in them and letting the jewelry sell itself, having your hostess be your wingman or whatever that looks like. I don't think anybody that's on this video right now has a problem doing a trunk show. None of us do, right? Let's be honest. Like we wouldn't be on this call if we had an issue with having a trunk show. We all have really bad shows. We all have really good shows, and it's riding that wave in between. But it's how do I keep building that pipeline and how do I keep filling that funnel full of people? So you're not asking enough. You're not asking at all, or it's how you're asking, right? It's how you're saying it. And I think the biggest thing that when my business soared was I changed my mindset to say, instead of feeling like I was asking someone to, would you have a show for me? Or would you do a party for me? I was saying, I'd love to come do this for you. Like, you need to catch up with your girlfriends. Or I would love to let you shop for free. Or, I haven't seen you in forever. Let me come do this for you. It's a great excuse for us to catch up. Or I'd love to do a fundraiser. Or I'd love to come to your office. It's basically changing your mindset that you're asking someone to fuel your business, where in turn, you are feeling something for them, right? I mean, let's be honest. There's not a lot of places that you can get like $250 in free product and drink wine with your best friends for 2 hours and be done, right? Like that doesn't happen. I mean, whatsoever. So you have a gift to give. And I think sometimes it's the mindset, right, of how we ask. I also think we are so prone to diarrhea of the mouth, where like we overly share, right? Like we're so excited, or you're just so happy to have someone on the phone that you're like, ugh. And instead it's a turnoff, right? So it's figuring out like your voice, right? Being authentic. We talked a little bit about that last week. Like how can you find your authentic self? And it's saying like, this is my thing. Like this is your spiel. And then it's literally a copy and paste. So whenever you're having that conversation, whether you have your 30-second commercial when you're out and about, or when you're at a trunk show, or you're on a phone, or you're texting, or you're in person, you just say like, I'd love to come do this for you. And you bite your tongue and say, what do you think? And when you let people talk, I will tell you, I've learned this so much in 7 years. When you let people talk, they talk themselves into it, right? Like they do. Like if you sit there and say, well, what if we do this, and here's this date, and this is what you should do, and this is what you're going to get, and this is how we're going to do it, then they're like, I'm out. Like so much, like bandwidth, right? But when you say, I would love to come do this for you. I mean, a girls' night, some wine, plain dress up. What do you think? And if they're like, yeah, that sounds really fun. I can't do it right now. That's fine. You know, why don't we look a couple weeks out? Your right now could be tomorrow, right? For all they know. So I think it's also a lot about how you're asking. So let me stop at that. So 3 questions. You're not asking enough. You're not asking at all, or you're not asking the right way or the right people. So any questions around that, like any comments, thoughts? Is that helpful just to kind of like put it into like a really simple scenario to say like, when I'm beating my head against the wall and I want to jump off the Stellan cliff, do I fall into any of these 3 categories, right? Like do any of these 3 buckets? Do I need to kind of like pull myself back and have a little self-check, you know? Any thoughts? Good? Helpful? Okay, let's rock on because we got 40 minutes before they shut us off, as we figured out last time, right? So no matter what, you know, I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing is like getting back to it, right? And saying like, okay, so what are we going to do now? And that's what Jenny did, right? She took action. She said, it's what Brooke did. Brooke, how many people did you reach out to? Like 50, 60?
50. And I didn't get one drunk show out of it.
Okay, so do you feel like any of those questions, like were you like, am I asking the right people? Am I saying it the right way? Is it, you know, it could be as silly as like, am I asking the right time of day? You know, like
I think that I need to change the way I'm asking.
Okay, great. So how are you asking?
I think I'm kind of like asking them like they're doing me a favor,
Mm-hmm.
and I might need to like flip it, like asking them like I'm doing them a favor. That made a lot of sense with me.
So I think that in the second fold of that too is kind of the assumptive thing too, right? Where you say, I'm going to come do this for you.
Yeah.
Pushy. I mean, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, okay, well, you're going to pick up something and do something for me? Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Like, someone help me do something? Shocking, you know? But I think when you say like that assumptive of like, if I just assume they're going to have the show and I say it with sugar and spice and make it really simple and sweet, then they're going to go for it. And if they don't, then they don't. And you move on to the next person. So I think a lot of it is literally stepping back for a second and saying like, am I saying it the right way? So kudos to you because you were like, hey, I reached out to 50. And you know what? The bottom line is those 50, that there's probably a lot you didn't hear from. So then you get that second chance to go back to and say, you know, when you go back 2 weeks later, you know, Kim and I have talked a lot about that too on the cadence. Like how often do you reach out where you don't become the crazy person, right? From
that was going to be my question. Like, when can I follow up? Like, how soon?
No, I think my whole thing is until someone says hell no and hangs up the phone, like they're not a no, right? They're always on my list. Yeah. And I think the second fold of that is that I usually try to spread it out. So I try to go in like a week or 2 increments, right? And maybe I try to shift it up. So like if the original reach out was a text and I didn't hear back, then maybe I'll try to give them a phone call. Or if it was a phone call, then maybe I'll follow up with a text. And so I think like printing this thing out and like putting like a TP, FB, E, or whatever your mode of transportation / communication is, then I think at the end of the day, you can say, Brooke, okay, well, gosh, I called her and I haven't heard back from her. So maybe I'll shoot her a quick text next Friday. And then I also would change up when you're asking, right? So like, are you calling at everyone's lunch break? or are you calling on Sunday afternoons? And if you're having great success, then it's not broke, don't fix it, right? But if you're struggling, spice it up a little bit, challenge yourself to stretch a little bit and try a different time. Maybe it's calling, I particularly am a huge fan of like that 8:30 to 9:00 window. And then I feel like after 9, you're done. And I think before 8:30, if you can be like me, like I was putting Hattie to bed tonight and I had like the one hand on her, like, yeah, I'm holding you, night, night, pat, pat, 5-year-old. And I was literally going through my Facebook going, gosh, I got to get some trunk shows on the books. So I'm literally going through my Facebook thinking, okay, I need to find some virtuals, right? I need to find some new in-persons. Who have I not reached out to in a while? And I just pulled up my friend list. And then I would just go to my notes and type in their name and kind of was building a new list that I could come back and put on here after I reached out, right? So I think finding that time frame of like, I think if I shot off at that time, if I had it crafted and felt good about it, 30 text messages in an hour from 8 to 9, I think I would have gotten a response. And if I did it, then I know that that's probably not the right time for me. So it's a good self-reflection tool, right? I think Thursdays and Fridays, I swear by them. People are happier. They're nicer. The weekend's there. They see happy hour in their future, whatever that looks like. So I think Thursdays and Fridays are always great. I go back and forth on Sundays because I feel like family time, you're at Costco, you're trying to get the backpacks ready or you're getting ready to travel for work. I feel like Sundays sometimes are hit or miss. Sometimes Sunday morning, if you get up in like 9-ish, 10, you kind of pop it off first thing in the day. But I think it's a trial and error. I think what works for you, Brooke, may not be what's for Christina, right? Or for Lucia. I think you find a groove and I think it changes. It's just like your who you know list. It's a constant evolution. And just like your why evolves, right? Like why you first start up is not the same reason why you're still here or you keep growing or you promote or you step back or whatever it is. I think it's an evolution. So I think it's figuring out just being able to be flexible and try out different things and find that secret sauce. And you may have success for a while with something and then it stops working and then you got to fix it. But that's in anything in life, right? 110%. So good. That's good, Brooke. I like that. Okay. So other questions, other things that we could talk about, I'm here for you. So you tell me like what you think, the 10 a day is a lot, right? It's a stretch. 10 people is a ton. But I know a lot of you did it and Lucia's over there smiling in the pedicure chair and I'm like super jealous. And she's like, yeah, 10. I did like 4, but it's okay. I love you, Kelly Wenzel. So I think at the end of the day, like take that quota of like 40, right? And if you did, you only reached 12, then really try to double down a couple of days and see if you can reach out. And, do you guys feel like you struggle with who to reach out to or building that list? Or do you feel like it's more of the time of making it happen?
I think it's the time, really.
The time. Okay.
Yeah, me, you and I talked, obviously, like, we just have different schedules and it's, I do a lot of it on my corporate jobs time. But, and it's really, for me, it's just kind of constant. And I do the same thing. I go through my phone and I'm like, oh, I need to reach out to her. I'll go through my Facebook friends list. And I'm like, oh, that person's online right now. So I'm just going to, hit her up.
The green dot, right? The green dot's a magical thing.
So, and I think part of it is I think I need to change a little bit of what I say. And I have started to do that a little bit. And my style is not pushy. So if they're like, oh, let me think about it, like that is not a no to me. So then I wait like 2 or 3 weeks and can be like, oh, we never got that on the books. Like, let's do it. And that's how I got one of my trunk shows for this month was,
that's
you
mentioned
for your birthday, let's do it. And then I'm like, you love margaritas. Let's do it on the 22nd. And it was done. So, that doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. And sometimes someone will surprise you and they're like, sure, I'd love to do it. And you're like, absolutely. Oh, okay. I don't know what happened, but that's awesome. So, I think it's just finding the time really.
Okay.
Doing it. So at least for me.
So one thing I was thinking about doing for the whole team, and you guys tell me for you guys as future leaders and current leaders, as well as like for your downlines, like kind of going back. So one of my secret sauces, like the superhero thing I have in my belt is time mastery, right? It's like ways that I structure my day and no, it is not pretty sometimes. I will, full disclosure, like some days it's like smoke coming out of my ears and don't get in my path. But most of the time I feel like I have a grip. And so there's a lot of ways, whether you work corporate, whether you stay at home, whether you have kids or you don't have kids, they're just smart things, right? Like of how you structure your day. I mean, have any of you guys heard of the book, Eat That Frog?
I was just about to say, when I first signed up to be a stylist, I listened to one of the calls that you did about Eat That Frog.
Uh-huh. It's literally one of my most favorite things. And I think, gosh, like, I mean, how long, that was what, a year ago, Brooke? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
About.
Yeah. So it's been a while. So I feel like maybe that's something we need to pull out, because I feel like the overall theme a little bit is kind of like that choo-choo train, right? Where everyone's kind of on the track and they're feeling a little derailed, but they're feeling like they still have a little momentum. And how do we capitalize that for the downline and for you guys as leaders and future leaders and make that happen? So I think I'm going to pull that out somehow, maybe next week. I think with Monday being a holiday, I think maybe next Monday night, maybe we skip the Zoom chat and we kind of go to like a big picture, like time mastery. And then we can dive back in the next 2 weeks of like granular, like let's talk about sponsoring and what is it going to take for us to get there kind of thing. But I think at the end of the day, I think we all want more time, right? I need a sister wife or a clone. I haven't decided which one yet, but I think that we do. And I think there's ways that we can buy back our time, both financially as well as, mentally, that can be helpful. So I think what I would leave us with here, and then I'll answer any other questions you guys have, is maybe like one of the challenges we can focus on this week to kind of drive forward is like kind of really focusing on the list, right? Like let's get the list, like let's get the people, let's export like all the trunk show. I mean, everybody in the fall, everybody at holiday, like everybody you can follow back up with, hostesses that maybe hosted last spring, if you've been around for a little bit, that need to host again. The people that like, I don't know about you, but if I'm in the shower and I'm shampooing my hair, like someone's name pops up in my head and I'm like, oh, Sarah, I've never talked to her about something. I thought I should probably do a trunk show, or she lives in this area. So it's getting even like scrappy. If you don't even like my tracker, of getting a spiral notebook and just writing it out, right? And building this big list. And then let's focus next week on time mastery, right? Like let's challenge you guys. And I think y'all will be like my guinea pigs. Let's see who all's on, because I'm going to make you accountable. So hold on. Let's see. We got Brooke, you're in the group, Christina, Kim, Jenny, and Lucia. So basically, you guys are going to be my guinea pigs, and I want you to float through the next week, right? And then this weekend, before we do this team call on time mastery, I want you to see, like, I want you to keep track of your week. Like, when are you asking? When are you finding time for Stella and Dot? And it doesn't have to be like, I don't want a PowerPoint. No one send me a PowerPoint. Okay. So it literally is just like, hey, I spent about 6 hours this week and these were my results. Or I found that I was working a lot in the evenings and it felt good, or it felt frantic. Or, I have a corporate job and I actually sat in my car at lunch and ate my Subway sandwich and made 20 calls, or, whatever that is. But using the list and building that big list this week and focusing on, if you didn't do the 10 reach outs a day, getting those 10 in and mapping out how that feels. Because then what we can do is we can duplicate that and tweak it, right? We can say just in tonight, like there were some ahas of like, maybe I'm not asking it the right way. And maybe I'm not positioning the stuff, the conversation the way I should. But one thing I will say, what do you guys think? Do y'all like that? Like Christina, do you feel good about that? Like, 'cause I think it's going to be different for everybody, right? Like what Jenny's life looks like is different than Brooke's and Kim's life and Christina's and Lucia's and so on. Then I think all of us, and then I may have you guys kind of be my guests on the call next week. Would that be fun? And then, if something worked really well for you or something you're like, then I think that's good. It's helpful and it's relatable and duplicatable for everybody else. Does that sound good? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So the second thing I'll say is I want to go back to Jenny, what you said about your follow-up. Like you don't like to be the aggressive, pushy person. And I don't either. Like, it's just not my style. Like Brett and I were actually, my husband and I were talking about this when after came downstairs, and I said, it's just not me. Like, it's just not me to be like the overly zealous. Like I don't want to walk into a room and I want people to run out. And I don't want them to be like, not invite me to a dinner party because not that we have dinner parties, like we're fancy over here. I'm in like North Face, no makeup, but I don't want people to not invite me to stuff because they're afraid that I'm going to come in and like book a trunk show or like over, diarrhea of the mouth, selling not. And so I love what you said is like, I'll say you listen to what those people are saying. And I think that is such a great thing that we don't do a lot of, right? Because we're trying to churn and burn. Like we're trying to like get those calls in, but actually listening. And so when they say like, you're listening for those cues of like, is this one that I need to like file away to like next year? Or is this one that like, hey, I can reach back out on her, before her birthday and book the show. And I think that is so much credible. I mean, like, I know if somebody was like that to me, I would be more conducive to say yes in the long run. So I think that's the biggest thing is I love the objection handling. Callie was leading her team tonight on how to, overcome objections. And I love that. But I think at the end of the day, if someone says, honestly, I mean, like I have a show in March and I have a show in April and I have a show in May. And there were people I reached out to in January that just said, I have cheer competition or I'm traveling for work, but I want to do April. April would be really great. Okay. Do you want a weeknight or weekend? Right. And so I'll take it where I can get it. And then it just takes some, a little bit more investment on the hostess coaching to keep it on and avoid the cancellation and stuff like that. But I love that, Jenny. And I think that's a really true thing is like, when you're asking is being sympathetic and saying like, I hear you totally. It's here when you want it. Just know that, I would love to do this for you. And I'll circle back with you in a couple weeks. How does that sound? And flipping it back to them. So as you truck on this week and reaching out and building up, because the main thing before we can even talk about getting you to star or sponsoring or maximizing a trunk show is you got to go book a lot of shows, right? We got to get out there. We got to do as many shows as you feel comfortable doing in a month. And we got to, then once we get that on the calendar, then we'll talk about maximizing and how we're going to sponsor, right? But let's not put the cart before the horse. Like, I don't want to talk about the group hello tonight. Like, I did not feel like you guys would have walked away and been like, oh my gosh, that was so inspiring. Like, I can't wait to join next week because Kelly talked about what pieces to style in the group hello. So like, let's keep it real and let's keep it going and let's focus on that. So thoughts, comments, how does that feel? Questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
I know I've talked to Jody about this and like my thing is obviously like I want to host like 1 million shows during the month. And
Sure.
I ask a lot of people and I just can't get them to say yes or I feel like I'm asking the same people because I feel like my who do I know list is like the same people. And so I've only had maybe a handful of trunk shows and it's like the same people.
Okay.
So I'm trying to like broaden that, but it's like I'm stuck right now.
Sure. No, that's a great question. And Kim Straight, I can see her over there nodding because her and I have had that conversation, right? So Kim, I'll throw it back to you for a second. I think sometimes the real world experience is better than Kelly running her mouth. So like some things that because I know that's where you kind of ran into a rut in the very beginning was like, how do I expand outside this group? And like, what does that look like? And so I mean, do you have like a top tip for Christina that's worked well for you? I know you've done a lot of hit or miss vendor affairs and trying to expand the network and stuff like that. But I think we all run into that sometimes. And we're going to, if not us, then I think a stylist on our team that we're going to coach as we become leaders will have that problem too. So Kim?
I totally can relate to that because I felt like I had exhausted my friend group and then they were going to become not my friend group anymore because all I did was talk to them about Still and Dot. And so I really do. I'll try anything. So a bridal fair, a vendor show, I'll join with some girl who sells Mary Kay or candles or whatever crazy other thing they might be selling to see if we want to do something together. I'm just constantly trying to join with somebody to meet somebody new. So my latest thing I did was a bridal fair, and I did pay money for the booth. It hurts my feelings, to have to pay that money. But then I have 25 contacts that I'm working through calling, and so those are people I would never have met, obviously, because I'm 49, and so none of my friends are currently getting married. So all these young girls that I met, so fun, and they and already I've got a couple shows from these brides that I met. So, I mean, I know that's not always an opportunity. There's not a bridal fair available every month to do, but maybe just look for something like that. Or I have tried a charity show through the school or whatever. And yes, I donated my commissions, but I met a girl who became crazy about Stella and Dot, and she eventually hosted, through that opportunity. So I used to say I'll try anything once, but now I'm kind of like, well, I'll try anything twice. It didn't work the first time, but maybe I should try it again.
It's a good attitude. I like it. And I think it's thinking outside the box sometimes. Kim lives in a small town in Alabama, right? So, she's kind of limited on, like you said, you don't want to be that person that you walk into a room and everybody like runs the other way. So I will piggyback on that. And I think those are amazing tips. And I think the biggest thing too is that it's almost like a good profiling, right? When we all meet new people and we all meet people that are, re-meet people that we maybe in the past. And I think the way I always look at people in a very non-profiling, healthy, non-stalkerish, smart way is I look at them and say like, okay, I have 3 buckets, right? As a business owner, they're either going to be a really fantastic hostess. They're going to be a really great customer that's never going to host a trick show ever, but they're going to be, a repeat customer with me. Or maybe they're crazy and they want to be a stylist too, And so really looking at everybody you meet, new and old, going back to the past, going to the future and saying like, what bucket does that person fall into? And maybe your list becomes 3 buckets, right? Maybe it's a customer list where you send styling ideas, and then it's a hostess list, and then it's a stylist list. Maybe it becomes 3 buckets for you. And then for you, Christina, I think the other thing is connector. Like, who can you ask to say like, when I have there's a girl that works for Tiffany & Company that I think would be an amazing hostess here in Frisco. I adore her, but she can't host because she works for Tiffany and it's a conflict. So I finally said to her, Heather, like, I know you always come and shop. You're so sweet. Listen, I'm really trying to build my business and I would love any, who do you, like, you have a sister, like, she's so cute. Like, why don't you get me connected? You come shop our trunk show, or maybe you could host with her and she could take the rewards and get you some free stuff and stuff like that. And so I think it's figuring out, saying like, maybe they're a connector of somebody else, right? Like, and get out, Christina, like get out, put your jewels on. Kim does Wondering Wednesdays and she gets out in the town and stuff like that. I mean, you are your best advertisement. So come armed with some lip books, put some Post-it notes on the front. So then when someone says, oh my gosh, I love your necklace, then you pass out that lip book, grab their email, send them the follow-up. But I think sometimes too, I think it's actually a good problem to have, because what's going to happen is you're going to grow outside of your friends and family a lot faster because you had to, instead of relying on a network of people. I live in a suburb that is like the most social suburb in the entire world. So there's always somebody I can run into and ask. But for you, I think that's what's going to make you stronger as you build to start, is the fact that like, that's why Kim, I mean, when Kim hit senior stylists and stuff, I mean, you're a stronger leader for that. And I think you'll see it will happen, but it's getting creative. It's thinking like, could I go do a pop-up shop at a salon, or could I do a pop-up shop at a boutique, or where's opportunity? And then when I meet folks, what bucket do they fall into? Is that helpful?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Awesome.
I just actually, I emailed the general manager of the gym that we go to up the street, and they're doing a Valentine's Day thing on Saturday, like a couples workout thing. And I said, hey, could I set up something here? We're going to come and work out, and all he can say is no, but he might say yes. And I don't expect a ton of sales, but I expect contacts, because there's obviously a lot of stylish ladies that go and work out at Equinox. So, and then I'm hitting all the sororities at my school to say, hey, I'll donate my commissions to your foundation or to whatever cause you guys are raising money for. But then I'm making contacts, and some of those women might eventually be stylists someday.
Sure.
So I figure at least I'm putting myself out there.
You're planting the seeds. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
And I think the last thing, and we're getting ready to lose, so I'm not going to get cut off like we did last time, is also thinking outside your backyard, right? Like, who are the people that aren't local? And let's do a virtual show. What do you have to lose? You're sitting on your couch, right? So making a list off of that too. So before we get cut off, let's make it a great week. We got a game plan. You guys are my guinea pigs. I'm going to ping you next weekend. If you need anything, I'm here. So just message me. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye guys.
Thanks.
Bye.